So what I think was so curious too, was when all of this started happening, like your second cancellation, if you will, and
This is like the
the
fourth one, but
fourth
this is
one,
the second big
the
one.
second, yeah, the second one at scale is that Food Network felt the need to put out a comment. And I was like, well, what's that about? Because diversity of thought, I think, is a great thing. It keeps everybody sharp and it makes sure that we don't go into anything that's too totalitarian on either side, right? You need to have that swing and that balance. Um, Again, they knew who you were when they brought you on. You were a comedian and you had already gone through some stuff. So I thought, well, what's that about? Right? Like you should be maybe.
Well, I thought it was an interesting choice for them because, like I mentioned at the top, there was when the straight white male tweet happened,
Mhm.
most of people's intellectual argument was, well, you're just racist. And even though that's a misrepresentation of me, that's a opinion that I don't think anybody would disagree is okay to stand against, right? Like if you really believe I'm racist, then you should stand against that because I think we all agree racism, there's no excuse for
Right.
it, right?
Mhm.
My argument is that like art isn't an opinion. It's not more racist to make a joke about race than it is for Quentin Tarantino to make the movie Django Unchained. Like he doesn't make that movie because he hates black people and loves slavery. He's telling a story.
Mhm.
And any instance where I've chosen to use offensive language, the N-word, or anything else, I'm often telling a story. And I'm often telling a story about my experiences with racism, being a guy who has dated women who are black, who's been with women who are Middle Eastern, and talking about the experience of having this face and having racist people just look at me and assume we're on the same team and then start to like, yeah, man, you know what I'm talking about? Just so a lot of times I'm sharing my experiences of what it's like to be a white guy that people dump their racism onto, and I try to deal with that in a funny way. That's the way I've dealt with it my whole life.
Mhm.
When my mom left my dad when I was younger, one of her first boyfriends, significant for a while, was a black guy, and this is 1990, 93, 92, 93. So this was still very taboo. And I remember walking through the mall with my mom and her boyfriend James and his little baby Jimmy, who was like 1 or 2, who was mixed race. And so people assumed he was my mother's child, and he wasn't. He was James's child from his previous relationship. But I remember the hate coming from every direction. White people hated it. Black people hated it.
Oof.
I remember people openly saying in earshot without any attempt to censor themselves, um, the most racist, hateful things, both black and white people. So that ingrained in me at a very early age that like both sides hate. Both groups have the potential to hate
Mhm.
when people come together, and that is about fear, and that is about survival. And so my way of dealing with it then was about humor. Even as a young kid, 10, 11 years old, I would make jokes about it. And I would make them laugh, and it would ease the pain and the tension of that. And so that's my lens has always been sort of tilted that way, where I look at race and I go, what's funny about this? This interaction between two people that could be very hurtful and harmful. How do I make it funny? And and so that's always been sort of my approach as an artist about those things. But again, even if I was being misrepresented, that would have been the time in my mind for Food Network to come out and go, "We espouse these views, right? Racism's never okay,"
Mhm.
because at least that's a defendable position.
Mhm.
They chose this circumstance, which is arguably the most like divisive topic in America today.
Right.
And you took a very hard line stance to say that we not only do you not agree with my views, but you regret having ever given me a platform. I mean, they basically just flipped the bird
Yeah.
to every conservative viewer that agrees with me.
Mhm.
And they got eviscerated. If you go and look at their thread, they got eviscerated in their
Yeah, I didn't
comments.
see it.
Yeah, the pro-life crowd was like, fuck this network. I'm canceling and I will never support you again. Like, you've lost me as a viewer.
Mhm.
And so I can tell you why they did it. Probably. I can speculate. They did it because most of the executives at Food Network are women. Most of the people that work in PR, that work in development, that were involved in my hiring process are women. And listen, I'm being honest. Those women never had a problem with any of the racial material I did when they signed me to a 5-year contract. Their perspective was, he's a comedian, you make jokes, we're not in the business of comedy. If we start trying to be the arbiters of what is and isn't funny, we're just going to create problems for ourselves. These are real conversations I had with these executives. This topic is far more personal for women. It's far more emotional for them. And I think in their mind, they thought that this was the safer hill to die on, because they're thinking of it through the perspective of women who think like they think. And I think it was a misstep on their part. I mean, listen, they, just like I have to deal with the consequences of the choice to share my opinions, so do they as a corporation. And, I'll share this. I talk about the death threats. The thing that a lot of people don't talk about in these circumstances is the overwhelming number of people that have messaged me support and have said, you are my new favorite comedian. You're the only comedian I've seen in 20 years stand for something that isn't popular. Thank you for standing up for. I've had women who went to get an abortion, almost died, committed their entire life to being anti-abortion, and they're anti-abortion activists because women don't know the health risks associated with abortion. Here's a great example. How many women die getting the procedure every year, Candace?
I
Do
have
you
no
know?
idea. No, I know that
I
there's a
have
risk.
no idea either.
Yeah.
I had no idea either, because no one ever discusses that. But apparently it's more than none. So it's like this amazing woman reached out to me in the messages that said, like, I believed all the pro-choice women empowerment shit ever, and I almost died getting an abortion. And it changed my life. And I've dedicated my life to trying to educate women that that society is telling you that this is fine and it's safe, and it's not fine and it's not safe. These places are not clean. They're not really well regulated. It's like they tell you we have these Planned Parenthoods to avoid you getting a back alley abortion. And a lot of these places are run like back alley abortion clinics. And so many people reaching out with like loving messages of support. The shift, there's been a drastic shift in my social media fans. I've lost about 4,000 or 5,000 people who don't like my opinion. I've gained about 13,000 that support the opinion. And so, and some people go, oh, well, you're just grifting. Like, you just took on this position because you think it's going to endear you to a new audience. No, this is how I really feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I also am somebody who, if you're someone who thinks that disagreeing with someone means they no longer deserve your respect or your friendship or your kindness, fuck you. I don't want you as a fan. You don't get me. You don't get my process. Like I said on Instagram in my long sort of diatribe of explaining where I'm coming from, you don't have to agree with me for us to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
You have to respect the process of people exploring what their thoughts and opinions are. And you have to be supportive of that. And if you're so close-minded on either side that you're unwilling to listen to someone who doesn't agree with you, then baby, I'm not for you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is my whole thing. Like, my thing is just, I love exploration. I love looking at things from a different perspective. And my views will surely continue to change based on my life experiences and the conversations I have with people that come from different places as I do, that have different life experiences. I mean, that's what turns me on as a comedian. That's where I write my best shit, is by being exposed to new things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reason there's a lot of shitty comedy in the world today, is because people become so entrenched in their beliefs that they don't experience anything outside of that bubble. Then they can only write inside that bubble. And they have a very one-dimensional act that only sort of looks at things from one point of view. And the only people that can like them are people that agree with them. And the second you deviate from that, you lose your entire fan base.